Tonight we begin in the city of Lysra, capital of the Verantine Empire, shimmered under a harvest moon, its domed palaces and cobbled streets aglow with torchlight. The Grand Palace, a labyrinth of gold and marble perched above the azure bay, was the empire's heart, its halls echoing with the whispers of courtiers and the clink of goblets. At its core, the opal throne gleamed, its surface inlaid with pearls, a symbol of Verantine power. Queen Isolde, at 28, sat upon it, her raven hair bound in silver netting, her violet eyes sharp beneath a sapphire crown. Her crimson gown, heavy with embroidery, hid a trembling heart, for she bore a secret that could shatter her reign, a truth buried in the palace's deepest vaults. Isolde had ruled for 5 years, ascending after her father, Emperor Varen, died in a border war with the Karani tribes. Her reign was fragile, the empire strained by famine in the western provinces, Karani raids in the south, and a restless senate led by Lord Corvus, whose ambition rivaled her own. Yet it was the secret, known only to her and her late mother, that haunted her. Hidden in a sealed crypt beneath the palace lay a scroll, the Pact of Eloria, revealing that Verantine rule was built on a lie, a pact with a forgotten goddess, Eloria, whose rituals demanded blood to sustain the empire's prosperity. Isolde's mother had abandoned the rituals, believing them barbaric, but the empire's woes, famine, raids, unrest, suggested Eloria's wrath. If revealed, the scroll could ignite rebellion, branding Isolde a heretic. Tonight, the Senate gathered in the throne room, their silk robes rustling, their eyes probing. Lord Corvus, his beard flecked with gray, stepped forward, his voice smooth but edged. Majesty, the western provinces starve. The granaries are empty, and the Karani burn our southern forts. The people demand answers. Isolde's fingers tighten on the throne's arms, carved with wyverns. The granaries are being refilled, she said, her voice steady. Ships from the Azure League bring grain. The Karani will be repelled. She met Corvus's gaze, sensing his hunger for power. He had spies everywhere, sniffing for weakness, and she feared he was close to discovering the crypt. Lady Cerys, her chief advisor and childhood friend, stood beside her, her golden hair braided, her eyes calm. Majesty, the Senate proposes a tax increase to fund the southern legions, Cerys said, her voice a lifeline. It will stabilize the borders. The Senate murmured, some nodding, others glaring. Corvus's lips curled. Taxes will spark riots, Lady Cerys. The people already whisper of a cursed throne. His eyes locked on Isolde, a challenge. Isolde's heart raced, the word curse striking too close to the pact. The throne is not cursed, she said, her voice rising. It is challenged, as all empires are. We will endure. She rose, her gown sweeping, ending the session. We reconvene tomorrow. As the Senate dispersed, Cerys leaned close, whispering, Corvus's spies are in the palace, Isolde. They've been seen near the old vaults. If they find the crypt... Isolde's jaw tightened. They won't, she said, her voice low. I'll ensure it. She strode to her chambers, the weight of the pact pressing on her, its secret a chain she could not break. The keeper's warning. The palace's lower halls were a maze of stone, lit by flickering torches, their air heavy with dust and secrets. Isolde descended alone, her crimson cloak hiding her crown, her steps silent on the worn steps. The crypt, sealed behind a stone door carved with Eloria's sigil, a crescent moon entwined with thorns, held the Pact of Eloria, a scroll her mother had shown her before her death. Guard it, Queen Lysara had whispered, her voice weak. If the Senate learns we abandoned Eloria's rights, they'll tear us down. Isolde had sworn to protect it, but the Empire's decline, famine, raids, unrest, suggested the goddess's curse was real. At the crypt's door, Keeper Myra waited, an ancient woman with white hair and eyes like polished obsidian, the last priestess of Illyria. Her robes, faded but adorned with moon sigils, rustled as she bowed. "Majesty," Myra said, her voice a rasp, "you come again. The scroll calls you." Isolde's hand trembled as she touched the door's sigil. "Corvus's spies are close," she said. "They've been seen in the vaults. If they find the pact, the Senate will brand me a heretic." Myra's eyes narrowed. Illyria's wrath grows. The famine, the raids, they're her signs. "Resume the rites, Majesty. Blood for prosperity." Isolde recoiled, her voice sharp. "I won't spill blood for a goddess who curses us. My mother stopped the rites for a reason." She paused, her heart torn. "But I can't let the pact be found. What must I do?" Myra's gaze was cold. "The crypt is warded, but wards weaken. Destroy the scroll, or it will destroy you." She stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "Fire cleanses, Majesty. The palace itself may be the price." Isolde's breath caught, the thought of burning her home unthinkable. "The palace is the Empire's heart," she said, her voice trembling. "There must be another way." Myra's lips thinned. "There is none. Illyria's truth is a blade, hide it, or wield it." She handed Isolde a key, its iron cold. "The crypt opens only to you. Choose soon, or Corvus will choose for you." Isolde clutched the key, her mind racing. She left the vaults, the torchlight flickering, the pact's weight a shadow she couldn't escape. In her chambers, Ceres awaited, her face pale. "Isolde, the Senate's restless. Corvus spreads rumors of a hidden truth, a curse on your throne. The people believe him." Isolde's violet eyes darkened. "He's too close," she said, her voice low. "The crypt must stay hidden." She hesitated, Myra's words echoing. "Ceres, if I had to destroy the palace to protect the Empire, would you stand with me?" Ceres's eyes widened, but her voice was steady. "Always, Isolde." "But fire? It's madness." Isolde's jaw tightened. "Madness may be our only shield." Sparks of rebellion. The Azure Bay glittered under dawn's light, its waves lapping Lysera's docks, but the city's mood was dark. In the Forum of Stars, merchants closed stalls, their wares sparse from famine, while citizens gathered, their voices rising in anger. "The Queen hides the truth," a man shouted, his face gaunt. "The gods curse us." The crowd roared, some hurling stones at imperial banners, others turning away, torn by fear. Isolde watched from the palace's highest balcony, her crimson gown stark against the marble, her sapphire crown heavy. Ceres stood beside her, her golden hair catching the light. "They're listening to Corvus," Ceres said, her voice urgent. "He's in the Forum now, promising bread and divine favor." Isolde's heart pounded, the pact's secret a noose tightening. "He knows something," she said. "His spies are too close to the crypt." She turned to Ceres, her voice low. "I'm sending guards to the vaults. No one enters." Ceres nodded, but her eyes were troubled. "And the Senate?" "Corvus demands a council tonight. He'll push for a regent, claiming you're unfit." Isolde's jaw tightened. "Let him try. I'll face him." She descended to the throne room, summoning Captain Darius, her loyal guard commander, his armor gleaming, his face scarred from Karani battles. "Secure the vaults," she ordered. "No one, not even Corvus's men, gets near." Darius bowed, his voice firm. "It's done, Majesty." But the Karani raid again, 2 forts burned. "We need more men." Isolde's throat tightened. divert the eastern legions. The crypt comes first. Darius nodded, departing, but his glance held doubt. In the forum, Corvus stood on a fountain's edge, his crimson robe a banner, his voice booming. The queen hides a secret that curses us. The gods demand truth. The crowd cheered, their hunger fueling his words. Ceres, cloaked to blend in, watched, her heart heavy. She slipped back to the palace, finding Isolde in the throne room. He's inciting them, Ceres said. If they storm the palace, the guards won't hold. Isolde clutched the throne, Myra's warning echoing, fire cleanses. If they find the pact, it's over, she said, her voice trembling. I'll burn it first, the scroll, the crypt, the palace if I must. Ceres's face paled. Isolde, you destroy everything. There's another way, move the scroll, hide it elsewhere. Isolde shook her head, her eyes fierce. It's warded to the crypt. Fire's the only way. She paused, her voice softening. Stay with me, Ceres. Whatever comes. Ceres took her hand, her voice steady. Always, my queen. As night fell, the forum's unrest grew, torches lighting the crowd, their chants a storm. Isolde stood alone in her chambers, the crypt's key cold in her hand, the choice to burn her palace a spark ready to ignite. The vault's shadow. The grand palace's throne room was a cavern of flickering torchlight, its opal-encrusted throne casting long shadows across the marble floor. Queen Isolde stood before her council, her crimson gown a stark contrast to her pale face, her violet eyes burning with resolve. The sapphire crown weighed heavy on her brow, but heavier still was the key to the crypt, hidden in her sleeve, its iron cold against her skin. The Pact of Eloria, sealed in the palace's deepest vaults, was a secret that could topple her reign, a scroll revealing the empire's founding on blood rights to a forgotten goddess, Eloria, abandoned by her mother, Queen Lysara. The empire's woes, famine, Karani raids, unrest, whispered of Eloria's curse, and Lord Corvus's spies were closing in on the truth. The Senate, gathered in their silk robes, murmured restlessly, their eyes sharp with suspicion. Lord Corvus, his gray-flecked beard framing a predatory smile, stepped forward, his voice smooth but venomous. Majesty, the forum riots nightly. The people starve, the Karani burn our southern forts, and you offer promises, not bread. The Senate demands action, or a new ruler. Isolde's fingers tightened on the throne's wyvern-carved arms, her heart pounding. Corvus's words were a blade, his spies too close to the crypt. The Azure League ships arrive in days, she said, her voice steady but strained. Grain will fill the granaries. The southern legions will hold the Karani. The throne endures. Lady Ceres, her golden hair braided, her eyes calm but alert, stood at Isolde's side, her voice a lifeline. Majesty, the Senate proposes a war tax to bolster the legions. It will secure the south. Corvus's lips curled. A tax will spark rebellion, Lady Ceres. The people speak of a cursed throne, a secret you hide. His eyes locked on Isolde, a challenge that cut too close to the pact. The council erupted, senators shouting, some loyal, others swaying to Corvus's whispers. Isolde raised a hand, her voice rising. Enough. The throne is not cursed, it is tested. We will not bow to fear. She met Corvus's gaze, her violet eyes fierce. The council is dismissed. We reconvene at dawn. As the senators filed out, Corvus lingered, his smile cold. Secrets burn, Majesty. The truth will out. His words hung like smoke, and Isolde's stomach churned, the crypt's key a burning weight. Ceres leaned close, her voice low. His spies are in the lower halls, Isolde. They've bribed guards. If they reach the crypt. Isolde's jaw tightened. They won't, she said, her voice firm. I'll see to it. She strode to her chambers, her mind racing. Keeper Myra's warning echoed, fire cleanses. The thought of burning the palace, her home, the Empire's heart, was unthinkable, yet the Pack's discovery could ignite chaos. In her chambers, Isolde unrolled a map of the palace, its vaults marked in faded ink. Cerys, she said, her voice low, prepare oil casks in the lower halls. If Corvus's men breach the crypt, we burn it first. Cerys's eyes widened, her face pale. Isolde, the palace? It's madness. There must be another way. Move the scroll, reinforce the wards. Isolde shook her head, her voice raw. The wards are tied to the crypt. Fire's the only way to ensure the Pack dies with it. She clutched Cerys's hand, her eyes pleading. Stand with me. Cerys nodded, her voice steady despite her fear. Always, my queen. The Karani storm. The Azure Bay churned under a storm shadow, its waves crashing against Lysera's docks, mirroring the unrest in the Forum of Stars. Torches lit the night, illuminating crowds chanting for bread, their voices a tide of anger. The queen hides the truth, a woman shouted, her face gaunt from famine. The gods curse us. Stones flew, striking imperial banners, as Lord Corvus's whispers fueled their rage. Isolde watched from the palace's war room, a chamber of maps and swords, her crimson cloak draped over a chair, her sapphire crown set aside. Captain Darius, his armor scarred from southern battles, stood before a map of the Empire, his finger tracing the Karani border. Majesty, he said, his voice grim, the Karani have overrun 3 forts. They're massing for a strike on Lysera's southern gates. We need the eastern legions, now. Isolde's heart sank, the Pack's weight pressing harder. Divert them, she said, her voice steady but strained. The crypt's safety comes first. Corvus's spies are too close. Darius's eyes flickered with doubt, but he bowed. It's done, Majesty. But the city guards stretched thin. If the Forum riots escalate, we can't hold both the palace and the gates. Cerys entered, her golden hair disheveled, her face pale. Isolde, Corvus is in the Forum, promising to reveal a secret that will cleanse the throne. The crowd's with him. If they storm the palace. Isolde's violet eyes darkened, Myra's warning ringing, fire cleanses. Then we prepare, she said, her voice low. Darius, station guards at every vault entrance. Cerys, the oil casks, move them to the crypt's outer halls. If Corvus's men breach them, we burn the pact before they see it. Darius's jaw tightened. Majesty, burning the vaults risks the palace. The fire could spread. Isolde's voice was steel. Then we control it. The Empire's survival depends on the pact staying hidden. She paused, her eyes softening. I trust you, Darius. Protect us. He nodded, his loyalty unwavering, and left to rally the guards. Cerys lingered, her hand on Isolde's arm. Isolde, this could destroy everything, your throne, your legacy. Let me take the scroll, hide it in the Azure Isles. Isolde's throat tightened, her mother's dying words echoing, guard it. It's bound to the crypt, Cerys. Fire's the only way. She clutched the key, its iron a cold promise, and turned to the window, the Forum's torches a growing storm. The Senate's blade. The palace's lower halls were a labyrinth of shadows, the air thick with the scent of oil and stone. Isolde descended with Darius, her crimson cloak hiding her crown, the crypt's key clutched in her hand. The Pact of Eloria lay behind its sealed door, its wards flickering, weakened by time. Keeper Myra stood guard, her white hair stark against her moon sigil robes, her obsidian eyes sharp. "Majesty," she said, her voice a rasp, "Corvus's spies breached the outer vaults. They're close." Isolde's heart raced, her voice low. "How close?" Myra's lips thinned. "Hours, perhaps. The wards hold, but not for long. You must act." Isolde turned to Darius, his sword drawn, his face grim. "Station your best men here," she said. "No one passes." She paused, Myra's words heavy, "Fire cleanses. And prepare the oil casks. If they reach the door, we burn it." Darius's eyes widened, but he nodded. "As you command, Majesty." He signaled his guards, their armor clanking as they formed a line, torches casting long shadows. Isolde faced Myra, her voice trembling. "If I burn the crypt, will Eloria's curse lift?" Myra's gaze was cold. "The goddess demands blood or fire. Destroy the pact, and her wrath may fade, or grow. Choose, Majesty." Isolde's hand shook, the key biting her palm. She left the vaults, Darius at her side, the weight of her choice a noose tightening. In the throne room, the Senate gathered, their faces a mask of loyalty and betrayal. Corvus stood at their center, his crimson robe a challenge, his voice booming. "Majesty, the people demand truth. The throne is cursed, your secrets doom us." Isolde sat on the opal throne, her violet eyes fierce, her voice cutting. "You speak of secrets, Corvus, yet offer lies. The empire endures, grain arrives, the Karani will fall. Stand with me, or be named traitor." The Senate murmured, some loyal, others swaying to Corvus's call. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear. "The Queen fights for us. The Azure League's ships dock tomorrow. Trust her." Corvus laughed, his eyes cold. "Trust a queen who hides in shadows. I have proof, a scroll, buried in the vaults, that proves her heresy." The Senate gasped, their eyes on Isolde, her secret teetering on exposure. She rose, her voice a roar. "Enough! The throne is mine, and I will protect it." She signaled Darius, who barred the doors, guards ready. "Corvus, you will answer for treason." As the Senate erupted, Isolde's heart pounded, the crypt's key burning in her sleeve. The forum's chants grew louder, the Karani's horns echoing from the south, and the palace stood on the edge of fire. The fire's edge. The Grand Palace's war room was a fortress of maps and flickering torches, its stone walls echoing with the distant chants of the Forum of Stars. Queen Isolde stood before a table strewn with charts of Lysra and the southern borders, her crimson gown stained with dust, her sapphire crown set aside. The crypt's key, cold in her pocket, was a constant reminder of the Pact of Eloria, a scroll hidden beneath the palace, revealing the empire's founding on blood rights to the goddess Eloria, abandoned by her mother, Queen Lysara. Its discovery by Lord Corvus's spies could brand Isolde a heretic, sparking rebellion. Keeper Myra's warning haunted her, fire cleanses. The thought of burning the crypt, or the palace itself, gnawed at her, a desperate act to protect her throne. Captain Darius, his armor scarred from Karani battles, pointed to a map, his voice grim. "Majesty, the Karani have breached another fort. They're a day's march from Lysra's southern gates. The eastern legions are en route, but the city guards stretched thin guarding the vaults." Isolde's violet eyes narrowed, her heart pounding. "Reinforce the gates," she said, her voice steady but strained. "The crypt must remain secure. Corvus's spies are too close." Darius hesitated, his face etched with concern. "Majesty, if we divert more guards to the vaults, the gates may fall. The Karani are relentless, 500 strong, with siege ladders." Lady Saris, her golden hair loose, her eyes sharp, entered with a scroll. Isolde, the Azure League ships are delayed, storms in the bay. Grain won't arrive for 3 days. The forum's riots grow, Corvus is rallying them, claiming your secret dooms us. Isolde's jaw tightened, the pack's weight a noose. He's too close to the truth, she said, her voice low. Saris, the oil casks, are they in place? Saris nodded, her face pale. In the outer vaults, as you ordered. But Isolde, burning the crypt risks the palace. The fire could spread to the upper halls. Isolde's hand clutched the key, her voice resolute. If Corvus's men breach the crypt, we burn the pact before they see it. The Empire's survival depends on it. She turned to Darius, her eyes pleading. Can you hold the vaults? Darius bowed, his loyalty ironclad. With my life, Majesty. He left to muster his guards, their boots echoing in the halls. Sarah stepped closer, her voice trembling. Isolde, there's still time. Move the scroll to my family's estate in the Azure Isles, fire's too great a risk. Isolde's throat tightened, her mother's dying words echoing, guard it. The wards bind it to the crypt, she said, her voice raw. Fire's our only shield. She met Saris's gaze, her heart heavy. If I fall, protect the Empire. Saris took her hand, her voice firm. We stand together, my queen. The Senate's betrayal. The Forum of Stars was a cauldron of chaos, the night sky lit by torches as the crowd surged, their chants a tide of fury. The queen hides the truth, a man bellowed, his voice hoarse from hunger. Eloria curses us. Stones struck the palace gates, the city guard struggling to hold the line. Lord Corvus stood on a shattered statue, his crimson robe a banner, his voice booming. The throne is cursed. I will reveal its secret and save Lysera. Isolde watched from a palace balcony, her crimson cloak billowing, her violet eyes fierce. The pact of Eloria was her burden, its truth a spark that could ignite rebellion. She turned to Saris, her voice low. He's rallying them for a coup. If he finds the pact, he'll claim the throne. Saris's face was grim. His spies are in the vaults, Isolde. Darius's men caught too, but more are searching. The Senate meets now, Corvus will demand your abdication. Isolde's heart raced, Myra's warning ringing, destroy the scroll, or it will destroy you. Then we face him, she said, her voice steel. Prepare the throne room. I'll confront the Senate. In the throne room, the opal throne gleamed, its pearl inlays catching the torchlight. The Senate gathered, their robes a sea of silk, their faces a mix of loyalty and treachery. Corvus stood at their center, his eyes gleaming, a scroll in his hand, not the pact, but a list of grievances. Majesty, he said, his voice smooth, the Empire bleeds, famine, raids, riots. The people say you hide a truth that curses us. Step down, or we name a regent. Isolde rose, her sapphire crown gleaming, her voice a blade. You speak of truth, Corvus, yet sell lies. The Empire endures, grain arrives, the Karani will fall. Name me heretic, and you name yourself traitor. The Senate murmured, some loyal, others swayed by Corvus's words. Senator Lyrian, an elder with white hair, stepped forward, his voice trembling. Majesty, Corvus claims proof, a scroll in the vaults, tied to Eloria's rights. Show it, or the Senate will act. Isolde's breath caught, the crypt's key burning in her pocket. There is no scroll, she lied, her voice steady. Corvus invents myths to steal the throne. She signaled Darius, who stood at the doors, his guards ready. Arrest him for treason. Corvus laughed, his hand raising the scroll. This lists your failures, Majesty. The people will see it, and the vaults will yield your secret. The Senate erupted, loyalists shouting, traitors rallying to Corvus. Darius's guards moved, swords drawn, but Corvus slipped through, his allies shielding him. Isolde's heart pounded, her voice rising. "Hold the chamber. No one leaves." But the doors burst open, Corvus's mercenaries storming in, their blades clashing with the guards. Isolde drew a dagger from her sleeve, her eyes fierce, ready to fight for her throne. The Karani breach. The southern gates of Lysra shuddered under the Karani's siege, their battering rams pounding, their war cries echoing across the azure bay. The city guard, stretched thin, fought to hold the walls, their spears glinting in the dawn's light. Darius, leading a cohort, stood on the ramparts, his sword bloodied, his voice roaring orders. "Hold the line. For the queen." But the Karani, 500 strong, scaled ladders, their curved blades flashing, their furs stained with ash from burned forts. In the palace, Isolde stood in the war room, maps strewn before her, Cerys at her side. The crypt's key was a cold weight, the pact of Eloria a secret she could no longer guard passively. "Darius can't hold both the gates and the vaults," she said, her voice trembling. "The Karani are too close, and Corvus's mercenaries are in the palace." Cerys's eyes were grim. "Isolde, the oil casks are ready. If we burn the crypt now, we stop Corvus's spies, but the fire could take the palace." Isolde's jaw tightened, Myra's voice echoing, "Fire or blood." "Then we control it," she said, her voice resolute. "Cerys, take a guard to the vaults. Light the casks if Corvus's men breach the inner hall. I'll hold the Senate." Cerys hesitated, her hand on Isolde's arm. "You're risking everything, Isolde. Let me move the scroll, there's still time." Isolde shook her head, her violet eyes fierce. "The pact stays hidden, or we fall. Go." Cerys nodded, her face pale, and left with a guard, her steps heavy. Isolde strode to the throne room, the clash of swords echoing from the lower halls. The Senate was in chaos, loyalists and traitors grappling, Corvus's mercenaries pushing toward the vaults. Isolde climbed the throne, her dagger gleaming, her voice a roar. "Senators of Verentine, stand with your queen, or fall with Corvus." Lyrian, his white hair disheveled, rallied to her, his voice firm. "We stand, Majesty." But Corvus, at the chamber's edge, shouted, "The vaults hold her heresy. Follow me, and we'll save the empire." As mercenaries surged, Isolde fought, her dagger slashing a man's arm, her guards rallying. But a cry from the vaults froze her, Cerys's voice, sharp with urgency. "They're here!" The scent of oil and smoke rose, the fire's spark igniting, and Isolde's heart raced, her choice of flame that could consume her palace. Outside, the Karani breached the gates, their war cries drowning the city's screams. Darius fought on, his sword a blur, but the walls were falling, and Lysra stood on the brink of ruin. The flames embrace. The grand palace's lower vaults were a labyrinth of shadows, the air thick with the acrid scent of oil and the distant clang of swords. Queen Isolde stood before the crypt's stone door, its crescent moon and thorn sigil glowing faintly under torchlight, the pact of Eloria sealed within. The scroll, revealing the Verentine Empire's founding on blood rights to the goddess Eloria, was a secret that could topple her reign, branding her a heretic. Lord Corvus's spies had breached the outer vaults, their footsteps echoing closer, while the Karani's war cries shook Lysra's southern gates. Keeper Myra's warning burned in Isolde's mind, "Fire cleanses." The crypt's key trembled in her hand, its iron a cold promise of destruction. Lady Cerys, her golden hair singed, her eyes wide with fear, stood beside her, a torch in one hand, a dagger in the other. "Isolde," she whispered, her voice urgent, Corvus's mercenaries are in the inner halls. The wards are failing. We must act now. Isolde's violet eyes flickered to the oil casks lining the vault, their contents gleaming in the torchlight. Her heart pounded, the weight of her mother's dying words, guarded, clashing with the Empire's survival. Light them, she said, her voice raw but resolute. Burn the crypt. The pact must die. Cerys hesitated, her face pale. The fire will spread, Isolde. The palace could burn entirely, your throne, your home. Isolde's jaw tightened, her eyes fierce. Better the palace than the Empire. Do it. She handed Cerys the key, her hand steady despite the tremor in her heart. If I fall, take the ashes to the Azure Isles, keep the secret. Cerys nodded, tears glinting, and struck her torch against the oil-soaked stone. Flames erupted, licking the walls, the heat searing as they spread toward the crypt's door. Isolde grabbed Cerys's arm, pulling her back, the fires roared drowning the mercenaries' cries. Run, she shouted, the two racing up the stone steps, smoke billowing behind. In the throne room, Captain Darius fought Corvus's mercenaries, his sword clashing, his armor bloodied. The Senate was in chaos, loyalists like Senator Lyrian rallying to Isolde, while traitors fled or fought. Isolde burst in, her crimson gown scorched, her sapphire crown gleaming. The vaults are burning, she shouted, her voice cutting through the din. Corvus, your proof is ash. Corvus, his crimson robe torn, his eyes wild, lunged toward her, a dagger gleaming. You've doomed us, heretic, he roared, but Darius intercepted, his sword slashing Corvus's arm, forcing him back. The mercenaries faltered, smoke rising from the lower halls, the palace trembling. Isolde climbed the opal throne, her dagger raised, her voice a storm. Senators, guards, stand with your queen. The Empire endures. The loyalists rallied, their swords joining Darius's, but the fire's heat grew, the palace's walls groaning, and Isolde's heart raced, her sacrifice a flame consuming her home. The city's fall. Lysera's southern gates lay in ruins, the Karani pouring through, their curved blades flashing, their war cries a tide of fury. The city guard, outnumbered, fought on the walls, their spears bloodied, their shields splintered. Captain Darius, recalled from the palace, led a desperate stand, his voice roaring over the chaos. For the queen! Hold the line! But the Karani, 500 strong, overwhelmed the ramparts, their siege ladders a forest of death, their fires lighting the dawn. In the palace, smoke choked the air, the fire from the crypt spreading to the lower halls, its flames licking tapestries and wooden beams. Isolde stood in the war room, her crimson cloak abandoned, her face streaked with ash. Cerys, coughing, her golden hair matted, reported, the crypt's gone, Isolde. The pact is ash. But the fire's out of control, it's reached the archive wing. Isolde's heart sank, the palace, her father's legacy, her home, crumbling. Evacuate the upper halls, she ordered, her voice steady despite the grief. Get the servants, the scribes, out. We save lives now. Cerys nodded, rushing to organize the evacuation, her dagger still in hand. Isolde turned to a map of Lysera, its southern gates marked in red, the Karani's advance a spreading stain. Senator Lyrian entered, his white hair singed, his eyes grim. Majesty, the Senate scattered. Corvus escaped, rallying the forum's mob. They're storming the palace gates. Isolde's violet eyes blazed, her voice fierce. Let them come. I'll face them. She grabbed her dagger, the sapphire crown still on her brow, and strode to the throne room, where loyal guards held the doors, their faces grim. Outside, the Forum of Stars was a battlefield, the crowd chanting Corvus's name, their torches a sea of fire. The queen burns us, a woman screamed, her voice raw. Corvus, his arm bandaged, stood on a fountain, his voice booming. Her heresy destroys the palace. Seize her, and we'll save Verentine. Isolde stepped onto the throne room balcony, her gown scorched, her voice ringing out. People of Lysera, I burn the vaults to save you from lies. The throne stands, stand with me. The crowd wavered, some cheering, others shouting, but the Qurani's horns echoed closer, their fires visible in the south. Cerys returned, her voice urgent. Isolde, the palace is lost. The fires in the upper halls. We must flee to the azure docks, ships wait there. Isolde's throat tightened, her mother's words echoing, guard the empire. Not yet, she said, her eyes fierce. I hold the throne until Darius stops the Qurani. She turned to the crowd, her voice a beacon. Fight for Verentine. The empire is yours. But the palace groaned, beams collapsing, and the crowd surged, Corvus's mercenaries leading the charge. Isolde gripped her dagger, her heart aflame, ready to fight for her city. The queen's stand. The grand palace burned, flames leaping from the lower halls to the golden domes, smoke billowing over Lysera like a shroud. Isolde stood in the throne room, the opal throne scorched but standing, her sapphire crown a defiant light. The pact of Eloria was ash, its secret safe, but the cost was her home, her legacy. The Qurani had breached the city, their war cries mingling with the forum's riots, and Corvus's mercenaries battered the palace doors, their blades gleaming. Darius burst in, his armor bloodied, his face grim. Majesty, the Qurani are in the city. The southern gates are lost. We've fallen back to the forum. He paused, his eyes heavy. The eastern legions are a day away. We can't hold. Isolde's heart raced, her voice steady. Then we fight here. The throne is Verentine's heart, while it stands, we stand. She turned to Cerys, her eyes pleading. Get to the docks, Cerys. Take Lyrian, the loyalists. Save them. Cerys's face twisted, tears falling. I won't leave you, Isolde. We face this together. Isolde gripped her hand, her voice raw. You're my sister in all but blood. Save the empire for me. Cerys nodded, her dagger raised, and led Lyrian and a handful of senators out, their figures vanishing into the smoke. The palace doors splintered, Corvus's mercenaries pouring in, their leader at their head, his dagger gleaming. Your throne burns, Isolde, he shouted, his eyes wild. Yield, or die. Isolde climbed the throne, her dagger raised, her voice a roar. I am Verentine. You'll take nothing. She fought, her blade slashing a mercenary's arm, Darius at her side, his sword a blur. The guards rallied, their loyalty afire against the chaos, but the flames spread, the throne room's tapestries igniting, the air choking with smoke. Outside, the Qurani reached the forum, their blades clashing with the city guard, the crowd scattering in panic. Corvus lunged at Isolde, his dagger grazing her arm, blood staining her gown. She parried, her blade striking his shoulder, forcing him back. The pact is gone, she shouted, her voice fierce. Your lies die with it. A beam collapsed, fire roaring, and Darius pulled Isolde back, his voice urgent. Majesty, we must go. The palace falls. But Isolde stood firm, her eyes on the throne, her heart set on her city. As the flames closed in, a horn sounded, the eastern legions, arriving at last. Darius's face lit with hope. They're here, Majesty. We can hold. Isolde nodded, her dagger still raised, her choice to burn the palace a sacrifice that might yet save her empire. Ashes of the throne. The grand palace burned, its golden domes wreathed in flames, smoke rising like a funeral pyre over Lysra. The opal throne stood defiant in the throne room, its pearl inlays blackened by soot, as Queen Isolde fought amidst the chaos, her crimson gown scorched, her sapphire crown a beacon in the firelight. The Pact of Eloria, the scroll that revealed the Empire's founding on blood rights to a forgotten goddess, was ash, its secret safe in the crypt's ruins. But the cost was dire. The palace, the heart of the Verentine Empire, was crumbling, and Lord Corvus's mercenaries pressed their attack, their blades clashing with Captain Darius's loyal guards. Outside, the Karani had breached Lysra's southern gates, their war cries mingling with the Forum's riots, threatening to drown the city in blood. Isolde parried a mercenary's sword, her dagger flashing, her violet eyes fierce despite the blood trickling from her arm where Corvus's blade had grazed her. For Verentine, she shouted, her voice a roar above the fire's crackle. Darius fought at her side, his armor bloodied, his sword cutting down another foe. "Majesty, the Eastern legions are here," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "They're pushing the Karani back." Isolde's heart surged, hope flickering amidst the flames. She climbed the throne, her dagger raised, her voice ringing out. "Guards, hold the chamber. The Empire stands." The Loyalists rallied, their swords a wall against Corvus's men, but the fire spread, beams collapsing, the air choking with smoke. Corvus, his crimson robe torn, his shoulder bleeding from Isolde's strike, stood at the chamber's edge, his eyes wild. "You've burned your throne, heretic," he shouted, his dagger gleaming. "The people will follow me." He lunged, but Darius intercepted, their blades clashing, sparks flying as the palace groaned. From the balcony, Isolde saw the Forum of Stars, lit by torches and Karani fires. Lady Cerys had led Senator Lyrian and the Loyalists to the Azure Docks, but the crowd's chants grew louder, Corvus's lies fueling their rage. Isolde's throat tightened, her mother's words echoing, "Guard the Empire." She turned to Darius, her voice urgent. "Get to the legions. Lead them to the Forum. I'll hold Corvus here." Darius's face twisted, his loyalty torn. "Majesty, I won't leave you." Isolde gripped his arm, her eyes pleading. "Save Lysra, Darius. That's your duty." He nodded, his sword raised, and fought his way out, rallying the guards to join the legions. Isolde faced Corvus alone, her dagger steady, the throne room a furnace. "Your proof is ash, Corvus," she said, her voice cold. "Your rebellion ends now." He charged, his dagger aiming for her heart, but she dodged, her blade slashing his leg, forcing him to his knees. The fire roared closer, a beam crashing, and Isolde stumbled, her crown falling, its sapphires glinting in the flames. The legions charge. Lysra's streets were a battlefield, the Karani's curved blades clashing with the city guards' spears, fires spreading from the southern gates to the Forum of Stars. The Eastern legions, 5,000 strong, marched into the city, their banners of gold and purple a beacon in the dawn. General Vorin, their commander, led the charge, his armor gleaming, his voice booming. "For the Queen! Drive the Karani back!" The legions surged, their phalanxes cutting through the invaders, their shields a wall against the chaos. Darius reached the Forum, his sword bloodied, his face grim. He found Vorin amidst the fighting, Karani bodies littering the cobbles. "General," Darius shouted, "the palace burns. The Queen holds the throne room against Corvus's mercenaries. We must secure the Forum and reach her." Vorin nodded, his eyes fierce. "We'll crush the Karani, then storm the palace." "For Isolde." The legions advanced, their spears piercing Karani furs, the invaders faltering as the crowd scattered, torn between fear and loyalty. At the Azure Docks, Cerys stood with Senator Lyrian and the Loyalists, their faces pale as they boarded ships. The Azure League's vessels, delayed by storms, had arrived, their holds full of grain. Ceres, her golden hair matted with ash, her dagger still in hand, organized the evacuation, her voice steady. "Move quickly. The queen needs us to hold the empire." But her heart ached for Isolde, alone in the burning palace, her sacrifice of fire that could consume them all. In the forum, the crowd wavered, Corvus's lies losing power as the legions pushed back the Karani. A merchant, his stall burned, shouted, "The queen fights for us. Stand with her." Others joined, their voices rising, a spark of hope amidst the chaos. Ceres, seeing the tide turn, left Lyrian to lead the evacuation and ran back to the palace, her dagger gleaming. She reached the throne room, smoke choking the air, flames licking the walls. Isolde stood over Corvus, her dagger at his throat, her gown scorched, her eyes fierce. "Ceres!" Isolde shouted, her voice raw. "The legions? They're coming!" Ceres replied, coughing, her eyes scanning the chaos. "The Karani are falling back." Corvus laughed, blood dripping from his leg. "You've burned your legacy, Isolde. The Empire will curse you." Isolde pressed her dagger closer, her voice cold. "The Empire will live. You won't." A beam collapsed, flames roaring, and Ceres pulled Isolde back, her voice urgent. "We must go, Isolde. The palace is lost." But Isolde's eyes were fixed on the throne, its pearls glowing in the firelight, her heart set on her duty. The truth's light. The palace's throne room was a furnace, its walls crumbling, the opal throne a scorched monument amidst the flames. Isolde stood over Corvus, her dagger steady, her violet eyes burning with resolve. The pact of Eloria was ash, its secret safe, but the palace, her father's legacy, her home, was falling. Outside, the Eastern legions fought the Karani, their horns sounding victory, while the forum's crowd rallied to Isolde's name, their chants drowning Corvus's lies. Ceres, her face streaked with ash, gripped Isolde's arm. "The legions have the forum. We must flee to the docks." But Isolde shook her head, her voice firm. "Not yet. The throne stands, and so do I." Corvus struggled, his eyes wild, his voice a snarl. "You've destroyed everything, heretic. Eloria's curse will consume you." Isolde's dagger pressed harder, silencing him, but a flicker of doubt crossed her mind, Myra's warning, fire or blood. Had burning the pact lifted the curse, or unleashed it? A figure emerged through the smoke, Keeper Myra, her white hair glowing, her moon-sigil robes untouched by the flames. "Majesty," she said, her voice a rasp, "Eloria sees your sacrifice. The pact is gone," her wrath stilled. "But the truth remains, you rule by courage, not blood." Isolde's breath caught, her eyes wide. "The curse, is it broken?" Myra's obsidian eyes gleamed. "The curse was fear, not divine will. Your fire burned it away. Lead now, or lose all." She vanished into the smoke, her form fading like a dream. The palace shuddered, a dome collapsing, and Ceres pulled Isolde toward the doors. "Now, Isolde. The throne room's falling." Isolde nodded, her dagger dropping, Corvus left to the flames. She grabbed the sapphire crown, its gems warm from the heat, and ran with Ceres, the guards covering their retreat. Outside, the forum was a battleground, but the legions held, the Karani retreating under Voron's assault. Darius met Isolde at the palace gates, his face bloodied but triumphant. "Majesty, the city's ours. The Karani flee." The crowd cheered, their voices a tide, for Isolde. For Virantine. Isolde climbed a broken fountain, her crown raised, her voice ringing. Lysra stands. The empire endures. We rebuild together. The crowd roared, their loyalty a fire rekindled, Corvus's rebellion broken. As the palace burned behind her, Isolde's heart ached, but Myra's words echoed, "You rule by courage." The pack's truth was ash, the empire her burden, her salvation. Ashes of renewal. Lysra stood scarred but unbroken, its cobbled streets littered with debris, its azure bay shimmering under a dawn sky. The grand palace was a smoldering ruin, its golden domes collapsed, its marble halls charred, the opal throne a blackened relic amidst the ashes. Queen Isolde stood in the Forum of Stars, her crimson gown replaced by a simple gray tunic, her sapphire crown dented but gleaming, her violet eyes fierce with resolve. The Pact of Eloria, the scroll that revealed the empire's founding on blood rights to a forgotten goddess, was ash, its secret safe, but the cost was her home, the empire's heart. The Karani had been driven back by the Eastern legions, Lord Corvus's rebellion crushed, his body lost to the flames, but Lysra teetered on the edge of collapse, its people hungry, its senate fractured. The Forum, once a cauldron of riots, was quiet, the crowd gathered around Isolde, their faces gaunt but hopeful. The Azure League ships had docked, their holds spilling grain, calming the famine's bite. Isolde raised her crown, her voice ringing out. People of Lysra, the palace is gone, but the empire endures. We rebuild together, stronger, united. A merchant, his stall rebuilt, shouted, "For the queen." The crowd echoed, their voices a tide, their loyalty rekindled by her sacrifice. But Isolde's heart ached, the palace's ruins a wound she carried, her mother's words, "Guard the empire," a weight she bore alone. Lady Cerys, her golden hair tied back, her face streaked with ash, stood beside her, her dagger sheathed, her eyes bright. "Isolde, the people rally to you," she said, her voice warm. "The Senate's loyalists await your orders. We can rebuild." Isolde nodded, her throat tight. "We start with the Forum, shelters, granaries. The palace comes last." She turned to Captain Darius, his armor scarred, his face bloodied but proud. "The Karani, where do they stand?" Darius bowed, his voice steady. "General Voron's legions pushed them beyond the southern gates. Their leader, Caris, sent an envoy. They seek a truce, trade, not war." Isolde's eyes widened, hope flickering. "A truce? Arrange a meeting. If we can turn foes to allies, Lysra strengthens." She paused, her voice softening. "You saved us, Darius. Thank you." He shook his head, his loyalty unwavering. "You saved us, Majesty. Your fire stopped Corvus." Senator Lyrian, his white hair singed, approached, his scroll of decrees trembling in his hands. "Majesty, the Senate's loyalists pledge to you, but the traitors' seats are empty. We must reform the council, or division will fester." Isolde's jaw tightened, her voice resolute. "Summon the loyalists. We rebuild the Senate, free of Corvus's shadow." She turned to the Forum, her crown raised. "Verentine rises from these ashes. Join me." The crowd cheered, their candles a sea of light, and Isolde's heart steadied, her sacrifice a spark of renewal. The Karani packed. The Azure Bay glittered under a midday sun, its docks bustling with lead ships unloading grain, their sails a forest of hope. Isolde stood on a makeshift platform near the docks, her gray tunic a stark contrast to her sapphire crown, her violet eyes scanning the Karani envoy. Caris, their leader, was a tall woman with braided hair and furs adorned with bone, her curved sword sheathed, her eyes sharp but weary. The Eastern legions stood ready, General Voron at their head, while Darius and his city guard flanked Isolde, their swords sheathed but vigilant. Caris bowed, her voice rough but clear and accented Verentine. Queen Isolde, your fire burned your palace, yet you stand. The Karani respect strength. We seek peace, trade routes through the south, grain for our children. Isolde's heart raced, the memory of Karani blades at Lysera's gates vivid. Your people burned our forts, Caris, she said, her voice steady. Why trust you now? Caris' eyes met hers, unflinching. Hunger drove us, as it drives your people. We offer iron, furs, warriors, for your grain and ports. Let us build, not destroy. Cerys, at Isolde's side, whispered, it's a chance, Isolde. Their warriors could secure the south, free our legions for the west. Isolde nodded, her voice firm. A truce, then. Open the southern routes, join our trade. But betray us, and Verentine's legions will answer. She extended her hand, and Caris clasped it, her grip strong, the crowd cheering as a banner of peace was raised. Darius leaned close, his voice low. Majesty, this strengthens us, but the Senate whispers, some call your fire heresy, even without the pact. Isolde's jaw tightened, Keeper Myra's words echoing, the curse was fear. Let them whisper, she said. We rebuild with truth. She turned to the crowd, her voice ringing. Lysera welcomes the Karani as allies. Together, we heal the empire. The forum erupted, merchants and citizens chanting her name, but Isolde's heart wavered, the palace's ashes a reminder of her cost. She glanced at Cerys, her eyes pleading. Did I save us, or curse us further? Cerys took her hand, her voice warm. You saved us, Isolde. The empire breathes because of you. The Senate reborn. The Forum of Stars was a hive of activity, scaffolds rising where stalls once stood, granaries filling with azure-lead grain. Isolde stood in a temporary council chamber, a stone hall spared by the fire, its walls draped with purple banners. The Senate's loyalists gathered, their robes patched but proud, Senator Lyrian at their head. The traitors' seats, once held by Corvus's allies, were empty, their owners fled or dead. Isolde's gray tunic was a symbol of her sacrifice, her sapphire crown a beacon of her rule, her violet eyes fierce with purpose. Lyrian bowed, his voice steady. Majesty, the Senate pledges to you. We propose new senators, merchants, healers, even Karani envoys, to rebuild trust. Isolde nodded, her voice resolute. Appoint them. The Senate must reflect the empire, Lysera, the provinces, our new allies. She paused, her eyes scanning the chamber. The palace's ashes are our lesson. We rule with truth, not secrets. Cerys, her golden hair gleaming, presented a scroll of decrees, trade pacts, famine relief, legion reforms. Majesty, the provinces report harvests improving. The Karani truce holds. Your fire cleared the way. Isolde's throat tightened, the memory of the burning crypt vivid. In Eloria's curse, she asked, her voice low. Was it real? Cerys hesitated, her eyes soft. Myra said it was fear. You burned that fear, Isolde. The Empire's stronger for it. Darius entered, his armor polished, his face proud. Majesty, the southern borders are secure. The Karani patrol with our legions. Lysera rebuilds. Isolde rose, her crown glinting, her voice ringing. Senators, we forge a new Verentine, one of unity, not division. The palace will rise again, but the empire is our heart. The Senate cheered, their loyalty a fire rekindled, and Isolde's heart steadied, her sacrifice a foundation for renewal. That evening, she stood on the forum's edge, the palace's ruins a shadow against the stars. Cerys joined her, her hand on Isolde's arm. You've saved us, "My queen," she said, her voice warm. Isolde smiled, her eyes on the city, its lights a promise. The pact was gone, Iloria's truth a myth, but her reign was real, forged in fire and courage. The new foundation. Lysra rose from its ashes, its cobbled streets bustling with builders, merchants, and envoys under a vibrant autumn sky. The Forum of Stars, once scarred by riots, now gleamed with new granaries and fountains, the Azure League's grain sustaining the city's heart. The ruins of the Grand Palace stood as a somber monument, its charred marble and fallen domes a testament to Queen Isolde's sacrifice. The Pact of Iloria, the scroll that revealed the Verentine Empire's founding on blood rights to a forgotten goddess, was ash, its secret buried with the crypt. Isolde, at 28, stood on a scaffold overlooking the palace ruins, her gray tunic dust-streaked, her sapphire crown gleaming, her violet eyes alight with purpose. The Karani were allies, the Senate reformed, but her reign hung on rebuilding not just stone, but trust. Lady Saris, her golden hair braided, her face radiant with hope, joined Isolde, a scroll of plans in her hands. Majesty, the architects propose a new palace, simpler, stronger, with halls for the people, not just nobles. The Karani offer iron for the beams. Isolde nodded, her throat tight. "Build it for Lysra," she said, her voice steady. "The opal throne will stand again, but as a symbol of unity, not secrets." She turned to Captain Darius, his armor polished, his scars a badge of loyalty. "The southern borders, how do they hold?" Darius bowed, his voice firm. "The Karani truce holds, Majesty. Kari's warriors patrol with our legions, securing trade routes. The eastern provinces send masons and coin for the palace." Isolde's heart lifted, the weight of her sacrifice easing. "In the Senate?" she asked, her eyes on Senator Lyrian, who approached, his white hair gleaming, his scroll of decrees heavy with reforms. Lyrian bowed, his voice steady. "The new senators, merchants, healers, Karani envoys, pledge loyalty. The council meets tonight to ratify your decrees, famine relief, trade expansion, legion reforms." Corvus's shadow is gone. Isolde's jaw tightened, the memory of the burning crypt vivid. "Good," she said, her voice resolute. "We rebuild Verentine as one empire, not divided by fear." She turned to the Forum, where workers raised a new statue of Iloria, not as a goddess of blood, but of renewal, her crescent moon now a symbol of peace. The crowd cheered, their voices a tide, for Isolde. "For Verentine." Saris took her hand, her eyes soft. "You've done it, Isolde. The Empire breathes because of you." Isolde's throat tightened, Keeper Myra's words echoing, the curse was fear. "At a cost," she said, her voice raw, her eyes on the palace ruins. "But it's a cost I'd pay again." Darius stepped closer, his voice warm. "The people see your strength, Majesty. They rebuild for you." Isolde raised her crown, her voice ringing. "We rebuild for them." Verentine rises. The crowd roared, their candles a sea of light, and Isolde's heart steadied, her sacrifice the foundation of a new era. The Queen's reckoning. The temporary council chamber, a stone hall in the Forum's heart, was lit by torches, its purple banners fluttering as the reformed Senate gathered. Isolde sat on a simple chair, the opal throne's reconstruction months away, her sapphire crown her only adornment, her gray tunic a symbol of her sacrifice. The senators, merchants, healers, Karani envoys, stood united, their faces a mix of awe and resolve. The empire was healing, its borders secure, its granaries full, but Isolde's heart wrestled with her legacy. Had burning the palace saved Verentine, or merely delayed its fall? Senator Lyrian rose, his scroll unrolled. "Majesty, the empire prospers. The Karani trade routes bring iron and furs, the Azure League's grain feeds the West, and the Senate is yours. But whispers remain, some call your fire a sign of weakness, others a divine act. What is your will? Isolde's violet eyes flickered, Myra's words echoing, you rule by courage. The whispers will fade, she said, her voice steady. The fire burned fear, not weakness. We rule with truth now, no secrets, no curses. She paused, her eyes scanning the chamber. But a throne is only as strong as its people. I will not rule alone. Appoint a council of advisors, Ceres, Darius, Charis, you, Lyrian, to share the burden. The Senate murmured, some nodding, others stunned. A Karani envoy, a young warrior named Terran, stepped forward, her furs gleaming, her voice clear. Queen Isolde, your fire earned our respect. We'll serve, as allies, not subjects. Isolde nodded, her heart swelling. Then serve, Terran. Virentine is yours too. She turned to Ceres, her voice softening. You've been my strength, Ceres. Lead the council. Ceres's eyes widened, tears glinting. Isolde, the throne is yours. You don't need to step back. Isolde smiled, her hand on Ceres's arm. I'm not stepping back, I'm stepping forward, with you all. She raised her crown, her voice ringing. Virentine is one empire, forged in fire, bound by courage. Let us govern it together. The Senate cheered, their loyalty a fire rekindled, and Isolde's heart lifted, her legacy not the palace, but the empire's unity. That evening, she stood on the azure docks, the bay's waves lapping, the palace ruins a shadow against the stars. Darius joined her, his voice warm. Majesty, the masons begin tomorrow. The new palace will rise by spring. Isolde nodded, her eyes on the horizon. It will be a home for all, Darius. Not just a throne. She paused, her voice raw. Did I do right, burning it? Darius's eyes softened. You saved us, Majesty. The empire stands because of you. Isolde's throat tightened, her crown heavy, but her heart light. The pact was gone, Iloria's myth dispelled, and her reign was Virentine's future. The light reborn. 5 years later, Lysera gleamed under a summer sun, its new palace rising from the ashes, its marble halls simpler, open to the people, the opal throne restored but shared. Isolde, now 33, stood on the palace balcony, her silver-streaked raven hair unbound, her sapphire crown set aside, her violet eyes calm. The Virentine Empire thrived, its borders secure, its granaries full, its senate a council of merchants, healers, and Karani, led by Ceres, now High Chancellor. The Karani, once foes, were allies, their trade routes fueling prosperity, their warriors guarding the south alongside Voron's legions. Isolde wore a simple purple gown, her role as queen ceremonial, her power shared with the council. She had not abdicated, but ruled as first among equals, her fire a legend that bound the empire. The statue of Iloria in the forum, its crescent moon a symbol of renewal, drew pilgrims, not worshippers, its myth a tale of courage, not blood. Ceres joined her, her golden hair graying, her eyes bright. The council reports peace, Isolde. The west harvests, the south trades, the east rebuilds. Your legacy endures. Isolde smiled, her hand on Ceres's. Our legacy, Ceres. You held me when I faltered. She paused, her eyes on the forum, where children played, merchants laughed, and Karani envoys bartered. The pact was a chain. Burning it freed us. Darius, now general, approached, his armor retired, his face lined with pride. Majesty, the palace is complete. The people call it Isolde's heart. Isolde's throat tightened, tears glinting. Then let it beat for them. She turned to the forum, where a festival began, candles glowing like stars, a tribute to Varentyne's rebirth. She raised a sprig of yarrow, a gift from a healer, her voice ringing. For Lysera. For Varentyne. The crowd roared, their voices a tide, for Isolde. Cerys and Darius stood beside her, their bond the Empire's strength. The palace gleamed, its scars a memory, its halls a promise. Isolde's fire had burned fear, forging a reign of truth, a legacy of light that would shine eternal.